Our next speaker is an event host, writer, and media commentator, whose numerous events focus on bringing people together to discuss business, politics, and current affairs. Her Bon Mot Book Club dinner series has brought numerous visionaries to Vancouver, including Koffi Annan, Pervez, sorry, it was the visionary part that threw me off. Pervez, Musharraf, and of course, Sarah Palin. Outside of her events, she is often found discussing business, policy, and economics on radio, television, and in the print media, as well as through her blog. She is currently writing her own book called Preaching to the Unconverted: How to Talk Politics and Influence People. Please welcome Leah Costello.
Thank you so much. Well, I'm glad that not everybody left the audience and they heard who I bring in. This is about curiosity, about using curiosity as a way of connecting people, hopefully solving some problems, and this is my personal journey and why I believe it's important that we do this. I started off my life in 100 Mile House. It's a very small town, about 6 hours north of here. 3,000 people. Largest claim to fame is it's the largest cross-country skis in the world. And beyond that, there's not much else there. Very illustrious start. We didn't have the internet, obviously. I was born in 1973. We didn't even have cable. Our television had rabbit ears, and in order to watch television, someone had to stand there, usually me, with one hand on one of the rabbit ears to get a picture. When you did, it was generally CBC News or Hockey Night in Canada. Neither one of them interested me very much as a child. The silver lining in that, though, is that I became an absolutely avid reader. Without bookstores or Amazon, we had the Scholastic book catalog. And I actually remember a defining moment in my childhood was when I actually realized that no matter how much I read, I would never read all the books that were in the world. We did have a radio, though, that my mother played constantly, and the only station that we got was CBC. And to this day, I am so grateful for the opening to the world that that little radio gave me. I heard about all sorts of places and people, and it really defined my desire to get out of 100 Mile House and get engaged in the world around me and in the issues that were important. That's my parents. My mother was a teacher. Actually, she's an art and science teacher, and very well-developed left and right brain, and also a very experiential learner. Those are chicken bones in the middle. When she was teaching us about skeletal structures, we actually ate roast chicken and put them back together. Now, she was a member of the BC Teachers Federation, a card-carrying union member. So when I left the fold of 100 Mile House and came to UBC, the population 14 times more students than people in 100 Mile House, I started to get exposed to some other ideas. Fiscally conservative ones. I got involved with the Fraser Institute. I met Preston Manning, and my mother didn't speak to me about politics for the next 20 years. It was very disheartening, though, because I brought this passion that she had for helping people and learning and education and good causes, and I was trying to marry them with some of the practical good ideas that I was learning in politics. And one of the most important things she said to me before she died 5 years ago, we had this time together, this gentle time together, where she said, wow, now that we've had a chance to talk, I realize how much we have in common. So I'll skip then to, I started this business on a whim. If you could have dinner with anyone, who would it be? And I thought back to my CBC days and thought, I want to have dinner with the former president of Pakistan and the former prime minister of Israel and the future president of Afghanistan. I called it the Bon Mot Book Club. My passion for reading, I thought this might be an opportunity for me to read all of those books that I wanted to when I was a kid. But it's kind of like the slow food movement. In the world of Twitter, I still think that reading books is important. I like to think of what we do as the slow ideas movement. We've had a lot of interesting people. Michael Lewis, Fareed Zakaria, Malcolm Gladwell. Up there is Walter Isaacson, who wrote Steve Jobs' biography. Absolutely fascinating. Amazing speaker about leadership and innovation. My economics roots mean I bring an economist. This is Larry Summers, Obama's former economic director and the editor of The Economist, John Micklethwaite. There is a theory, of course, that the more celebrated the economist, the less likely their predictions are to be true. But we don't shy away. Oh, actually, I started to realize as I was doing this that it was beyond just, hey, if you could have dinner with anyone, who would it be? And that some of the ideas that we were talking about were changing people's lives. This is Norman Doidge. He does research into brain trauma and countereffects this idea that what happens, that our brains are not hardwired and you can recover from trauma. One of the gals in the audience, her dad suffered a stroke, and it was because of that book that she had more hope and encouragement and changed his treatment, and he's recovered today. This is Atul Gawande, the author of the Checklist Manifesto, who has revolutionized surgical procedures in hospitals. When my own partner, David, had a tumor behind his eye, and his own surgeon marked off which eye to operate on, I thought, wow, that's the checklist in action. This is Liz Murray, who was homeless and managed to get herself scholarships through and went through Harvard while being homeless. I started to realize the importance of connecting people like this with people in our community. That's Lauren Siegel, the chair of We Day. The next year, he invited Liz to speak in front of 18,000 high school students. Don Lindsay, the president of Tech, they had some money that they wanted to spend on a charitable cause, and Bjorn Lomborg talks about getting the most value out of the money that you spend on good causes. And it was because of his work that Don Lindsay and Tech invested $12 million in a Zinc That Saves Lives program, and this idea about how can we get more out of our charitable dollars. We don't stray away from controversy. This is Dick Cheney, 10 years after September 11th. The middle picture is a protest that happened when we brought him here. I love protests, I love democracy, I love free speech, but it saddened me, the violence that was there instead of the ideas. What was interesting about Koffi Annan on the Dick Cheney theme is that, he had this great story about George Bush. He said, George Bush and I disagreed quite vociferously about going into Iraq. But what I learned about George Bush was there's the policy and the person. He said, I maintained my relationship with George Bush because he was the first guy in line when we needed money for HIV in Africa. It was all of these things together that made me realize that one of the most important things we can do is be open and be curious and be learning and figure out ways to solve problems together and to reach common ground and to connect people that seem like they're on opposite sides of the spectrum. I'm still having adventures. I'm still trying to get out of 100 Mile House in my mind and in my heart and out into the world. One of the things we do in our business is we take people on tours to economically interesting places. We call that the Ideas Without Borders program. And that other one is the Preaching to the Unconverted book, where I believe very strongly in bringing people together. This, in the end of the day, is what it's all about, though. We also have fun. It's not all economists and politicians. And this is John Cleese. He was the last speaker that we had. And he taught me the importance of, even though there's lots of big problems in the world, it's all about having fun and remembering that. So thank you.